While I was in line at the hospital waiting for a follow-up, the big screen was broadcasting a live feed of the maverick director winning an award overseas. During the thank you segment, he didn't say a word. He made a phone call in front of the whole world. Then my phone rang. Clutching my registration slip, chilled by the AC, I still felt a dull ache low in my belly. 3 months after being discharged, I was back for a checkup, and yet somehow it felt like I could see him everywhere. I stared up, dazed. The big screen was streaming an international film festival. The camera trained on a young Chinese man holding a gold trophy. Familiar and strange at once, the prodigy director Luke, who peeked right out of the gate. After sweeping every major award at home these last 2 years with Spring Rising, he'd just taken Best Director at a foreign festival. No Chinese face had stood on that stage in years. Even the hospital screen had switched to the live show 10 minutes ago. The whole nation watched, sharing the pride. Luke, just as in my memory, blazed, dazzling and irresistible. Our film finally fought its way back here. I'm so proud I could die. Nothing on me hurts anymore. It's bad enough Luke's brilliant. He looks better than the top male stars. Shh, don't talk. Luke's about to give his speech. Everyone around me was buzzing, yet held their breath for his thanks. I tilted my head at the screen. Under the spotlight, Luke said nothing. He pulled a phone from his pocket, and only when he pressed it to his ear did I dare believe it. He was making a call. Live. Before the whole world. In his thank you segment, and then the phone on my knees lit up and rang. A call from the States, an unknown number. An absurd thought flashed through me. People nearby turned, incredulous, faces odd, then muttered and looked away. What a coincidence. It really was. I almost mistook it for a call from Luke. I picked up my fingertips trembling. A kid in the next seat swung an arm and smack sent my phone flying. The ringtone had already annoyed a lot of people. Unhappy looks shot my way. Pressing my lips together, I bent to grab it. Just as I was about to touch the phone, the kid yanked off my hat. A cold rush swept my scalp. The ringing cut off right then, leaving a missed call glowing on the screen. The kid's words were innocent and cruel. "Why don't you have hair, sis? That's scary." The floor threw back the bluish sheen of my bare scalp. No hair. Indeed. Scary, indeed. When I looked up again, the young man on the big screen was speaking at last, cool-faced, star-bright, standing at the world's center. This was Luke's life. They called my name, number 86, Isabel. Exam room 3. I answered mine. The results were good. My only decent news lately. I sprawled on the couch, scrolling short videos. Ever since Luke won, every platform had run nothing but him for half a month. Reporters mobbed Luke at the airport. He answered none of it. Director Luke. Who was that high-profile call for? With bodyguards in black at his side, he turned back and answered one single question. Sunglasses hid his eyes. Only the curl at his mouth was cutting. Luke said, "The person I hate most." Calling the person he hated most during the thank you speech, anyone could tell something was off. Soon industry insiders spilled it. The person Luke loved and hated was a second-tier starlet named Jessica. They'd known each other since college, enough grudges and entanglements to run an 80-episode soap. I opened my call log and stared at that missed US number. After I walked out of the exam room that day, I called it back over and over. No one picked up. Probably a scam. Forget it. Jessica was on a lucky streak. Tied to Luke, she'd have offers pouring in. My agent, Emily, yanked open the curtains, and sunlight poured straight into my eyes. Another hashtag rocketed up Weibo's trending list. Jessica Isabel. Click in, and it was a wall of abuse. They said Jessica had climbed by stepping on me. I debuted in college, started in teen dramas, then somehow drifted off track and, before I knew it, became the comedy girl. The kind whose face made the whole country laugh until I pulled a drugged Jessica out of a booze-soaked banquet. The leaked security video twisted it into me offering a junior up to industry bigwigs. They used to call me the happy girl. After that, they called me a madam. Through the whole mess, Jessica never said a word, Not one to clear my name, choosing instead to craft the perfect victim and land a few projects off it, vaulting from newbie to overnight sensation. Right then I got my diagnosis and took a hiatus, only to be cursed right to my door with funeral wreaths. Emily, my agent, ached for me and scolded the trolls for being heartless. I joked, "It's fine, saves me funeral costs." Back then I truly thought I was going to die. I didn't. I've hung on till now, hair gone, body thin, a smile I barely remember how to make but alive. As Jessica's heat climbed, her team dragged out my name for another public flogging. Did Isabel think quitting fixed it? Get out here and apologize. Madam Isabel, bullying our girl when she was new, disgusting. Is Isabel even still alive? That's the kind of thing in her super topic. Hashtags with my name were still climbing, when a red breaking tag parachuted into first place. Luke on reality TV. The Real You had been planned since last year as a marquee reality show. Now it was trending because rumor had it Luke would be on the guest list. Genius director Luke, fiercely private, even at peak heat these past 2 days. No one had dug up more on him. Word online said he would not only be on the show, he'd pick the lead for his new film from among the guests. Overnight, heavyweights were duking it out for a slot. Emily eyed that golden ticket show and sighed. If you could get on this, you might just clear your name and flip it around. We both smiled. I couldn't even land an ad on my comeback. Let's not. There's no free lunch. Capitalists don't do charity. Except this time, the sky really did drop a pie. I stood outside the seaside villa where The Real You was filming, still hardly believing it. I wore a wig and makeup. I only looked a bit thinner than before. Before I left, Emily said my chance had come. Whether I got washed clean didn't matter to me. I just wanted to live one more day and give the audience one more day of joy. Facing a camera I hadn't seen in forever, I tugged on my signature happy girl smile, then the cameraman suddenly swung away, shooting past me. I turned. My smile froze. Luke and Jessica arrived together, the sea wind tugging at their clothes. Luke had fully grown into his looks, features striking. "Lou," I managed a single syllable before my throat went hoarse. They brushed past without sparing me a glance. Head down, eyes on my toes. I'd never felt so grateful. Grateful that he would always shine, always enchant. Next to his light, my darkness wasn't quite so humiliating. "You!" Jessica suddenly turned around, pointing at the suitcase behind her. "Help me carry it to my room." I glanced back. She curled her lips into a smile, pointing at me. "Yes, you, Isabel." It felt jarringly out of place. She'd been milking a sweet, innocent persona for the past 2 years, but in front of me she didn't bother. "Jessica, we're live," I said quietly. Her expression shifted instantly, the usual sugary smile snapping back into place. Probably scrambling for some way to recover. Lips pale from the rush of it, I added lazily, "Kidding." The whiplash hit her hard. She swallowed the breath she'd been holding. Looking back, she saw Luke hadn't waited at all. He was already far ahead. She bit the bullet, grabbed her suitcase, and ran after him. The show had only invited me for one reason. The drama and cliques my bad blood with Jessica could stir up. My little jab was, in a way, exactly what the producers wanted. I finished unpacking in the room they'd assigned me, stepped out, and ran right into Luke. He was staying across the hall, hair still damp from a wash. They say fame softens people, but Luke only grew more polished. The aloofness was exactly the same as when he'd been a prickly teenager. Calling his name earlier had been pure reflex. Now my head was cooler. I remembered he didn't like talking to me, so I dropped my gaze, waiting for him to pass. Instead, a mocking voice dropped from above. "What? Your rich boy boyfriend doesn't let you eat?" I looked up. Luke's eyes were cool, fixed on my jutting bones. Instinctively, I tugged my sleeves down to cover my thin wrists. "I'm dieting," I murmured. He gave a sharp laugh. "All that just to marry into money? That's dedication. Blunt and humiliating." I opened my mouth, but he was already heading downstairs. The guests on The Real You were all big names. During introductions, their lists of representative works went on and on. I had plenty of mine too, lucky enough that every comedy I'd starred in had been a hit. When I finished, no one jumped in like they had with the others. The air went flat. I was, honestly, the oddest one there. The others either had both talent and popularity, or, like Jessica, powerful backing. Only me, 2 years out of the industry, with a massive scandal hanging over me. No one knew how to place me, so these savvy pros just stayed quiet. Then a bright voice cut in. Jessica looked right at me. "Those were all years ago, Isabel. What have you been doing these past 2 years?" It sounded like concern, but her fans had hounded me online for 2 years for not posting a single apology. Rumors had me vanishing into a rich marriage, with forum exposés laid out so convincingly I almost believed them myself. Luke, who'd been avoiding conversation since the start, suddenly looked my way. My voice caught before I said, "Figuring out life, honing my craft." I propped my chin on my hand and grinned like it was all a joke. Now, if someone gives me a role as a dying woman, I might just get to walk the stage in LA with director Luke next time. Shameless, cocky, that got everyone laughing, easing the tension. Even Luke's brows loosened, though only for a moment. Then the producers announced a new segment, a trip outside to see the sights, get some fresh air, and break the ice. The local culture here was charming. The catch? Someone had to stay at the villa to cook. Compared to the scenic outing, kitchen time wasn't just boring, it might not even make the final cut. No one wanted the job, all pleading incompetence. "Isabel can." I looked up blankly, meeting Luke's dark gaze. I hadn't expected him to dislike me enough to even strip away my screen time. The truth was, I could cook, and it wasn't bad. I used to make him noodles, and he'd drink the broth too. But now, probably not. I'd lost most of my sense of taste. I don't. The instinctive protest died when I caught the looks around me. I twisted my words with a bright smile. "Don't know how? Guess I'd better learn. When director Luke asks, I have to, right?" His lips curled in a sardonic smile. "Luke's at the top now. His word is law. Even if I truly couldn't, I'd have to learn on the spot." Bitterness coated my mouth. Only now did I taste a flicker of regret. If only I'd never met Luke. To my surprise, someone volunteered to stay and help. Julia, a former child star here gunning for the female lead in Luke's new film. "Don't take it personally," she murmured while sorting vegetables, her back to the camera. "He's just letting Jessica vent. He won't push you too far." I nodded. Everyone knew Luke and I were distant. For him to single me out could only be about Jessica. I stir-fried some greens for Julia to taste, her face twisted. "Isabel, you really can't cook, huh?" I gave an awkward smile and stepped aside, letting her take over. I stuck to washing veggies and setting out plates. By the time the food was nearly done, the living room was full of laughter from the group back from their walk. It sounded like fun out there. I poked my head out, ready to call everyone to the table, and met a pair of smiling eyes. Jessica had her hand hooked through Luke's sleeve, laughing bright as could be. The sight burned. I turned away at once. Julia looked at me, puzzled. I shook my head, carried the plates to the table in silence. The dishes tasted great. Everyone said so except Luke, who lowered his gaze after one bite, a chill in his eyes. The moment I saw that look, I knew trouble was coming. Sure enough, he dabbed his mouth with a napkin, his narrow eyes cool. "Isabel, you cook this?" My face went hot. A little stubborn, a little relentless, he left me no way to save face. With that scene at the table, everyone understood. In Luke's book, I was blacklisted. In this industry, people read the wind fast. I was soon isolated. Even Julia, who'd meant well, was dragged into awkwardness. I didn't want to drag her down further, so I pulled away on purpose. That night after my shower, I took off my wig. Fine stubble was sprouting on my scalp like fresh grass. Maybe in a few months I could go bareheaded. There was still the mark from a scan on my collarbone, and a surgery scar cutting across my stomach. I looked in the mirror thin, but my eyes were bright. I tugged my cheeks into a grin. "Hey, Isabel. Leave them something more." I took my meds, but tossed and turned sleepless. Finally, I slipped on a jacket and stepped out to the balcony. The sea shimmered silver under the moon, the wind carrying the salt-sharp scent of water. My nerves unwound. I was just about to head back in when voices drifted from behind me. "Luke, after all these years, why can't you let it go? What did I do so wrong?" Jessica's voice, breaking into sobs. My grip tightened on the railing. In an instant, I guessed who it was she was humbly pleading with. Eavesdropping wasn't exactly moral, but I'd been here first, just happened to be standing somewhere hidden behind a sheer white curtain, so they hadn't seen me. If I left now, I'd run straight into them, which would be even harder to explain. The person across from her stayed silent for a long time, before answering with just 2 words. "I'm sorry." I had no idea what Jessica had done to stir up this tangle of love and hate, but it wasn't my business anymore when I heard footsteps moving away. I waited a bit longer, until everything was quiet again before tiptoeing off, only to turn and meet Luke's eyes. He was leaning against the wall, a cigarette between his fingers, the ember a tiny star, watching me. So he'd noticed me all along. But the first thing out of my mouth was, "You smoke now?" He'd always hated people who smoked or drank. People change. He tugged at the corner of his mouth, and I couldn't tell who he was mocking. People do change. But from the first time I met Luke, I'd believed he'd always stay clean and pure. It was a kind of unspeakable sourness and instinct. Luke had transferred in the middle of sophomore year. The moment he walked in, word spread through the whole grade. There was a ridiculously handsome new guy. Back then, I was all smiles, popular. Nothing bad ever seemed to land on me. The teacher casually pointed at me and said, "Isabel," and handed the new student over to me. I looked up and fell into the black depths of his eyes, single-lidded, lazy in their gaze. "He's your new desk mate. Take care of him," the teacher said. I jumped to my feet, excited. "Luke's a little withdrawn," the teacher added. Later I thought that was putting it mildly a little. With those delicate, sharp looks, slender, single-lidded eyes, pale skin, I figured no one could possibly leave him out. Surely his life would be full of color and noise. I was wrong. Luke's looks were one thing, his temper was another. It wasn't that people excluded him, he excluded the whole world. And in that world, there's always someone who blooms with a little sunlight. That was me. Back then, Luke was all thorns. Anyone who got close bled. I just happened to have thick skin. Luke froze me out for a year, but couldn't keep it up. He probably never expected Isabel to be someone who didn't take hints. I wasn't after anything. I just wanted him to be a little happier. I was like that with everyone around me, wishing them happiness every day. But Luke was different. I was too young then to know where that difference came from. Until one time, someone nearby bet on how many eyelashes Luke had. I counted them while he napped at lunch, long and thick. His nose bridge, fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I counted slowly, always losing track and having to start over. Suddenly, Luke lifted a hand and covered my eyes. "Stop counting. Sleep." His voice was husky, his palm hot. 1 beat, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It took me a moment to realize that pounding was my heartbeat. And from then on, it was out of control. After transferring, Luke had lived with his grandfather. Later I learned that when Luke was 17, a car accident took both his parents. His grandfather was the only family he had left. His coldness wasn't without reason. Luke had good grades, and the teacher asked him to tutor me. Shockingly, he didn't refuse. So after school, I'd often skip along behind him to his house. His grandfather liked me, secretly showing me Luke's childhood photos, beautiful as a porcelain doll. He treated me better than Luke, even adding an extra egg to my noodles. Luke never said a word, but I could tell he was sulking. "Grandpa, why do you like me so much?" I'd ask through a mouthful of noodles. Grandpa would smile and say, "Luke's grandma always wanted a granddaughter. I think you and I are fated. Besides, Luke likes you." The cold-faced boy, who'd been eavesdropping, suddenly choked, his ears turning red. I stared at him suspiciously, only to get a gruff, "Eat." I didn't get it, so I just grinned. I knew Grandpa was making it up. What he liked was that Luke really had brightened up after hanging out with me. He made more friends over time, and I went from being his only friend to just one of them. I didn't mind. I especially liked seeing him smile in the sunlight. That was his real self. But the gap between us was big, and after the college entrance exam it became more obvious. He went to a top university, while mine was thousands of kilometers away, not just in distance, but in status. His military training started later than mine. By then I was already sunburnt dark. I even snuck away for a few hours on the high-speed train to see him. The campus was huge and I couldn't find him. I grabbed someone and asked, "Do you know Luke from the directing program?" The guy muttered, "Another one looking for Luke? Isn't that—" I followed his pointing finger. A group of guys was heading my way, and in the middle, tall and lean, was Luke. People on the path were stealing glances at me. I was usually carefree, but my chest tightened for some reason. Much later I learned the word for it. Shame. I hesitated, then waved and called out loud, "Luke!" He looked up, a little incredulous after all. Last night on the phone, I'd still been 1,000 miles away. His eyes were bright, cicadas droning loud in the heat. I realized then that I'd never be able to treat him normally again. Liking Luke meant I couldn't ignore his coldness, couldn't ignore the gap between us, couldn't ignore that to him, I was dispensable. His group had just finished training and were going to eat, so they brought me along. We sat down at a little private kitchen near campus, and soon a few of Luke's senior classmates from his club joined us. The table was packed, but I couldn't fit into Luke's circle. All I could do was smile. I didn't understand their technical jargon. Luke's parents had been veteran artists he was born to direct. Even as a freshman, he was the center of the group. He kept putting food in my bowl, and I just kept eating. Someone's gaze lingered on me before they teased, "Luke, your girlfriend?" Luke denied it lightly. "High school classmate." All right. Maybe I'd been overestimating. We weren't even friends. A senior girl with an interest in Luke casually asked, "You from F University across the way?" That school was also a prestigious century-old campus, but I wasn't. I shook my head and told her my school. Instantly, she relaxed, the threat gone from her eyes. By the time the meal ended, I was stuffed, but had to rush for the train. Luke frowned. "This late and you're still catching a train?" "I've got class tomorrow." He looked at me like he couldn't believe it. Why I'd travel so far just to see him for a day. I ducked my head, embarrassed. He walked me to the station gates. Honestly, the trip had been worth it. Seeing Luke with so many friends put my mind at ease. We weren't in the same world, and if nothing unexpected happened, I wouldn't be reaching out to him again. If things kept going this way, whatever was left between us would soon be gone. This time, saying goodbye really meant going our separate ways. "Don't come again next time," Luke said, looking at the top of my head and letting out a sigh. I stared at my toes. "Okay, I'll come to you," Luke said. I thought I'd misheard, and lifted my head in disbelief, only to meet his eyes. His expression was still cold, but his face was flushed deep red, from his ears down to his neck. "Isabel, want to be my girlfriend?" My mind buzzed, my body moving faster than my brain, hands hooking around his neck as I rose on tiptoe to kiss his lips. Cooler than mint, clumsy for both of us. But those memories had long since surged and vanished with the summer. The Luke in front of me now was nothing like that Luke. Signing up for this show, I'd already braced myself to see him again. I thought we'd parted on good terms, that the worst-case scenario was being strangers. I didn't expect him to go out of his way to embarrass me, dragging everyone else along with it. This was meant to be a slow-paced variety show. The first episode was just about showing off the local sights. Today's plan was a day trip to the seaside. 3 cars in total. 2 were full, the third was Luke's. Unfortunately, director Luke had a quirk: he didn't like sharing a car. The window of the car in front rolled down, revealing Jessica's smiling eyes. Her look said it all, Isabel. Look at you now. A far cry from the tearful act she'd put on last night. I still didn't understand what I'd done to offend her. I sighed, wondering how I'd even get to the beach. A convertible stopped beside me. Luke, in sunglasses, spoke in a low voice. Get in. Jessica's eyes flew wide, disbelief on her face, her expression darkening. When I didn't answer right away, Luke's brow creased with impatience. I slid into his passenger seat before his face could change further, not caring how colorful Jessica's expression turned. There was no cameraman in Luke's car. The only built-in dashcam had been covered with his jacket. He drove me along the coastal road. Soon we'd left the others far behind. I sometimes didn't understand Luke, why someone who hated being on camera would agree to do a show like this. The road was wide and quiet. The sea wind howled past, and sunlight spilled down. I tilted my head back, soaking in the warmth on my face. Since leaving the hospital, every minute alive felt like a blessing, but the silence between us turned awkward. Luke's grandfather had loved sunbathing too. Between my busy career and later my illness, I hadn't seen his grandfather in years. I hesitated, then asked, Luke, how's your grandpa's health? The car, smooth until then, screeched to an abrupt stop. I pitched forward, yanked back hard by the seatbelt, the pressure making me nauseous. I turned to ask, but it came out as a scream. Luke slammed the gas, the engine roaring as we shot forward. My hair whipped across my face. The wind suddenly knife-cold. I'd never feared much, but the feeling of weightlessness terrified me, and Luke knew it. His jaw was clenched tight. My screams didn't make him ease up. For the first time, I fully understood Luke hated me. I didn't know how long it was before we finally stopped on the beach. Stumbling out, I unbuckled, opened the door, and retched by the roadside, pale and shaky. When I finally lifted my head, trembling, Luke was standing against the light, his expression unreadable. My grandpa's dead, he said flatly. The last news he saw before he died was your scandal, and yet, somehow, it felt like Luke was the one who'd been abandoned by the whole world. I couldn't stand. I just couldn't understand how 2 people who'd been so close had come to this. I'd thought Luke and I had broken up peacefully. No screaming matches. No gritted teeth. Maybe that meant our feelings hadn't been that deep. Back in college, my roommates all knew I had a handsome, outstanding boyfriend. But after seeing Luke's photo, they fell silent. They didn't know how to sigh for me. I knew what it meant, not that I wasn't good, but that Luke was too good. So good that I often felt it was natural he liked me less than I liked him. The gap between us was too wide. By sophomore year, when my school held open auditions for the female lead in a campus drama, I eagerly signed up. The director picked me at once. He said my smile had a unique kind of charm. I didn't think much about it, just that it might bring me closer to Luke. Maybe one day I could even be his leading lady. I planned to surprise him with the news on his birthday. The drama was filming on campus. I didn't expect the very first scene to be a kiss. As the male lead's hand landed on my hair, I heard a voice, tight, with anger. Isabel! I turned to see Luke in the crowd. He was impossible to miss. Though he'd said he'd come visit, this was the first time, and he'd walked into this. My surprise turned to concealment in an instant. I knew I was in trouble. My nerves shot. The NGs piled up until the director told me to take a break and reset. I was already rehearsing in my head how to explain to Luke. What I met instead was his cold stare, so desperate to get famous. It was like a bucket of ice water dumped over me. Maybe because I'd always been so carefree with him. He didn't realize I could hurt too. I blinked the tears back. Yes, I want to be famous. He turned on his heel and went straight to the train station. My roommates had been right. This relationship had never been equal. I texted him, but he was busy and rarely replied. His university was full of beautiful girls, and every so often I'd get a taunting call from one of his admirers. His classmates never said it aloud, but they thought I wasn't good enough for Luke. Ironically, it was this drama that made me popular. Suddenly, I was the busy one, packed with events and shoots, barely having time to bother Luke. Sometimes I'd scroll back and realize our last chat had been 2 weeks ago. At one point, I got caught up in a scandal, pushed out to take the fall for someone else. I missed several of Luke's calls. The last message I got from him was 2 words: "We're done." He blocked me on every platform. I couldn't find him anywhere. I'd started in the industry just to be closer to him, but somehow I'd only gone further away. During that scandal, Luke's grandfather had passed away. Grandpa had called me, never mentioning himself, only asking what had happened between Luke and me. I had so much to say, but when it came to speaking, I hesitated and ended up saying nothing at all. I could still picture the old man, slowly brewing tea, asking if Luke and I wanted brown sugar eggs. Luke never did. I'd eat 2 by myself, fresh from vomiting, guilt twisted in my chest, and I could swear the ache in my belly had started again. I pressed my lips together and said, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there for Luke back then, and I'm sorry I never explained things clearly to Grandpa." He gave a short, mocking laugh. "Grandpa was bedridden, and your scandal made the papers photos of you leaving a hotel, right after a male celebrity. Isabel, you really should apologize. That kind of thing is the hardest to defend against." I'd called Luke to explain once the PR was over, but by then, the best time had passed. He didn't want to hear it anymore. Luke paused, looking down at me curled up on the ground in pain, his gaze cold. He said nothing else, just turned away. He didn't see that my face had gone paper white. Watching his back, I suddenly felt a strange relief. Thank God Luke and I had already broken up. Otherwise, who knows? Maybe right after losing his grandfather, he would have had to bury me too. That would have been truly cruel. In front of the cameras, at least I still had some professional polish. A quick bow of my head, and my smile was back in place. Luke had disappeared somewhere, even though he clearly had a bias against me, and the others were reading the wind. My sweet tongue and steady hard work still won people over. I bustled around, helping set up the barbecue and tents. With my knack for comedy, the mood turned warm and lively. "Isabel's smile is addictive," Julia said. "Makes me feel like I've raised a daughter. Ignoring her would feel like neglecting your kid. That's part of why I've always had good public favor. If it weren't for Jessica and my illness, who knows how popular I might be now." By the time the bonfire was ready, the sky had sunk into a velvet blue. The sea breeze swirled. Someone with a guitar began to strum and sing, soothing and warm. Along the beach, someone walked back slowly, the waves gently washing over his feet. Luke had returned, and even sat down beside me. My movements stiffened, but his expression was calm. Maybe he'd worked something out. The shadow in his brow seemed to ease. He pulled out a handful of seashells, laying them before everyone, 1 each, fresh from the shore. They were all beautiful shells and conches. I half expected Luke to pull some childish stunt at my expense. But instead, he handed mine out last and gave me the rest of the pile. I stared at him in surprise. His profile in the dim light was unreadable. Casual, like it was nothing. One of the award-winning actresses pinched my cheek and shoved a few skewers into my hands. "An actress can't be this thin, little Isabel." But my stomach, long used to its habits, couldn't take the grease. I just smiled, but then more dishes appeared in front of me. Jessica played along too, handing out sparklers to everyone, saying they could make wishes come true. We'd all been around the block in this industry, but surprisingly, everyone was into the little gimmick. Wishes flew hit dramas, big paydays. Even Luke lit a sparkler, though I didn't catch what he wished for. I just propped my chin on my hand, watching them laugh. "No wish?" Julia asked me. The bonfire leapt high. Every face around it glowed with joy. Even Luke's gaze toward me had softened. "Then I'll just wish for everyone to be happy every day," I said. Happy every day. That's all. After gazing at the night sky over the sea, the next morning we spent another half day playing on the beach. Sometimes, joy takes talent, and my specialty was making a fool of myself for a laugh. I blocked a sandbag for the actress, taking a dazed hit to the head. While brushing sand from my face, Julia leaned in and whispered, "You don't have to work this hard. The way things look now, you're bound to make a comeback." She was so kind. My eyes stung. Then she murmured, "About that thing before I was there. I know what really happened." I froze. She meant the time Jessica framed me. She knew the truth but couldn't speak out. Then the big shot behind the drugging had ordered me blacklisted. The fact she was willing to help now was already a lot. I shook my head, eyes bright. "It's fine. I don't mind." I really did love making people happy. On the walk back to the cars, everyone was barefoot in the soft sand. Partway along, a sharp pain stabbed my foot. I'd stepped on broken glass. Blood dripped quickly onto the sand. Luke, closest to me, crouched and took my foot, checking the wound. The others thought my silence meant I was scared. Suddenly I spoke up, pointing ahead. "Look, crabs," I said, amazed. "They really do walk sideways." Everyone was speechless. "Isabel, your brain works in strange ways," Julia said. That's when I realized Luke was still bent in front of me. He'd already cleaned and dressed the cut. Then he turned, motioning for me to climb onto his back. Startled past the point of flattery, I just stared. He grew impatient, explaining quietly, "No one else is suitable but me. Come on." All the other men were married. And with that, yes, he was the best choice. I climbed onto his back, feeling a momentary stiffness in him. He walked slowly, my arms around his neck. I felt like I was back in that summer after the college entrance exam, the air filled with the scent of grape soda. Bitterness rose in my throat. Some things, some people, you just can't go back to. Halfway to the villa, rain started falling. Everyone got damp, and we all went to shower on returning. I was late to dinner. Everyone else was already seated. Across from me sat Jessica. The meal felt odd. Most people claimed they weren't hungry, barely touching their food. Only Jessica across from me forced mouthfuls down, her face contorting like when she was acting. I was hungry and dug in heartily. Only at the end did I notice the strange looks from everyone. Luke, who'd been quiet, paused before asking. "Good?" Jessica managed a strained smile and nodded. That's when I asked blankly, "Who made it?" Luke's voice was gentle. "Me. Luke cooking." If my memory served, it had always been awful. Julia snorted quietly, probably thinking the three of us were ridiculous. Seeing everyone laugh, I lowered my eyes and smiled too. "It's good. How could it not be? I ate so much of it. At least the heavy salt let me taste something." I headed to the production team to contact Emily. My meds were running low. Phone in hand, I'd just stepped into a secluded spot when I heard Jessica on a call, all tearful charm. "Mr. Jack, I never meant to see anyone else. I've always been with you. How could I be playing tricks on you? My joining this show has nothing to do with Luke. That hot search about our phone call was all team hype. I don't want to quit the show. Don't make things hard for me. Okay, Mr. Jack? I know. I never held it against you for that drugging thing. It was just a bit of fun. How was I to know Isabel would stick her nose in?" That Mr. Jack dripped with honey, her voice soft and lilting. Maybe she was flustered. The words just spilled out. So the man Jessica had been trying to drug someone for back then was this same Mr. Jack. Turns out, after all the twists and turns, he'd become her patron. If he hadn't ordered my blacklist back then, I wouldn't have gone cold so fast. But in the 2 years since, Mr. Jack's shine had already dimmed. No wonder Jessica wanted to make a move. Compared to that middle-aged patron, Luke, handsome and at the peak of his career, was clearly the better way out. I lowered my eyes and tapped the stop button on my phone. Recording complete. Jessica's attitude shifted. If before she'd played coy with Luke, now she was openly making nice first, revealing she'd been his junior in college, painting rosy pictures of their campus days, then hinting, not so subtly, that the call Luke made at the film festival had been to her, though she hadn't answered. From the look of it, she was ready to toss aside her patron and cling tight to Luke's golden thigh. Julia had never liked Jessica, and didn't believe a word. At dinner, she deliberately brought it up, feigning humility. "Director Luke, that call you made at the festival, who was it to? Can you give us a hint?" Luke's eyelids twitched. No one expected him to answer, but he spoke 4 words: "The love of my life." The table erupted. The show's director was thrilled this episode was bound to blow up. Julia's throat tightened. She asked carefully, "Director Luke, is she here?" Jessica's hands trembled, her breathing quickened. Luke lowered his eyes, stayed silent a moment, then said, "Yes." Jessica could barely hide her joy. Her spoon slipped from her fingers into her bowl with a clatter. The cameraman, right on cue, zoomed in for close-ups of her face and hands. I could already imagine the pink bubble captions in post. She'd played this move well. My nose burned. Something warm spilled out. I hurried from the table to the bathroom, crimson drops hitting the white sink. Not a good sign. Footsteps sounded at the door. Thinking it was Julia, I called through my hand, "Don't worry. I'm fine, it's just a nosebleed. I'll be back in a bit." I heard the click of the lock turning from the inside before I realized it wasn't Julia. Looking up at the mirror, I saw Luke behind me. He turned on the tap and took my hands, rinsing the blood away, lashes lowered. "Isabel, weren't you busy marrying into money these past years? How did you end up like this?" My nose had stopped bleeding. I smiled. "No, I didn't marry rich. I've been working hard at living." His grip tightened, making my skin ache. He turned toward me, the corners of his eyes red. "Did something happen to you? You've got needle marks on your hand. Are you taking something illegal?" I stayed quiet for a moment, then pulled off my wig right in front of him, still smiling. "No, I've been sick for 2 years. His eyes widened slightly, fixed on my bare, shamed scalp. He didn't speak for a long time. The color drained from his face, as if he were the one ill. "Stop smiling, Isabel," he said, voice low with restrained fury. I'd grown used to smiling, and to life without Luke. I slipped my hand from his. Not far from the villa was a children's welfare home, today's stop, meant to encourage public support for kids. Once this was done, we'd have a few days off, during which the first half of the recorded season would air. My contract with my agent ended here. I wouldn't be filming the rest. After all, I'd only been out of the hospital a few months, still on guard against relapse. Just having this chance to return to the public eye was more than enough. I really had enjoyed these days. Half of Jessica's good reputation came from charity work. Her team often hyped her donations to children's homes. The director of the home came out to greet us, not the senior stars, not Jessica, but me. "Are you Ms. Isabel?" she asked. I nodded. She smiled. "Thank you for your past donations. It's because of you that our children live so well." The people around me stared in surprise. I was momentarily blank, then realized this might be one of the homes I'd supported. When I'd first gotten rich as an actress, I hadn't known how to spend the money, so I'd just donated it all. I hadn't expected to stumble across it today. I waved it off. I grew up in a welfare home too, just sending a little back to my family. That probably made it worse. People looked even more shocked. I always thought someone with Isabel's sweet nature, never holding grudges, always smiling, must have been spoiled all her life. Julia said. I scratched my head. Not really. I was found by my director at the home during Grain Rain, so they named me Isabel. Grain Rain, the last solar term of spring, when everything is growing, full of life. The children here were all well behaved. From the moment the director thanked me, Jessica had been uncomfortable. Now she'd just slipped off to the side. She was probably worried the kids would ruin her expensive clothes. I sat under the wisteria trellis, painting. a group of children crowding around to watch me fill in colors on white paper. Big sister, why is the sky yellow? I'd meant to give some philosophical answer. The sky doesn't have to be blue, but instead told the truth. Because I can't paint. A hand took the board from me, long, pale fingers, faint veins visible. Luke, with his good taste, sketched a few lines, and my mess of a picture came to life in his hands. Luke was good at hiding emotions. His earlier loss of control in the bathroom was gone, though his fingertips still trembled faintly. "You told me you had a happy family," he said quietly. I sighed, a little embarrassed. I was a teenager then, worried you'd pity me, so I made it up. I didn't think you'd believe it, but I meant no harm. "Why didn't you come to me?" he asked softly, meaning my illness. I shrugged, forcing a light tone past the lump in my throat. "We'd been broken up for ages by then. I knew you were busy." The crew had nearly all the footage they needed and were starting to pack up, which meant it was almost time to say goodbye. I pressed my lips together. "I'm sorry." This might be the last time I'd ever see Luke. His strides grew longer, already too far for me to catch in a few steps. I haven't had many regrets in life, but back then, stubbornly pestering Luke was one of them. "I'm sorry I kept bothering you. If I could do it over, I'd never have agreed to the teacher making us desk mates. The teacher set us both up for misery. Without me bothering you, your high school years would have been better. When we were together, I always felt it was unfair. I liked you so much, and you were so stingy, only liking me a little. In the end, we broke up unhappy. Truth is, we were only ever suited to being friends, being classmates. When I took my first acting job, it was just to be closer to you. I didn't expect you to get angry. I really am sorry. Grandpa saw that kind of news before he passed. You could have told me, so I could explain to him." Luke listened in silence for a long time before saying, "I couldn't reach you. Calls wouldn't go through. And I couldn't get near you. Maybe fate really was against us when I was popular." He was still preparing scripts and funding. When he was at his peak, I had already stepped away from the industry to fight illness. At that, there was nothing left to say. I thought for a moment, then gave him my blessing. If you like someone, hold on to her. Don't let her get away. Director Luke, stay at the top. Since I was 17, I'd loved seeing Luke shine in a crowd. Now, at 27, I still loved seeing him shine. Luke, just keep running forward. The first episode of The Real You aired to great reception. The show had no messy scripted drama. Its selling point was summed up in one word: real, meaning they kept in everything, whether it should have been cut or not. Like Jessica asking me to carry her suitcase. Or the repeated cold looks and different treatment. Jessica had even told the production team to edit them out, but they hadn't listened. Her reputation took a hit, while I actually gained fans. The live stream comments were amusing. Some even shipped me and Julia as a CP. When Isabel smiles, I can't help but smile too. Feels like I've just had a daughter. My happy girl is back. Jessica, the two-faced one. Get lost. Jessica never apologized for the madam thing. Stepping on Isabel's face was getting off light. Back when the incident happened, I had explained myself early on. But Mr. Jack had kept me under his thumb, blocking everything. Luckily, now Jessica had fallen out with him over Luke. Jessica's team had no choice but to use Luke to stir up heat and divert attention, especially his line on the show about the person he liked being present. Fans obsessed over it, loving the idea of a great fated romance. Until Luke, who never posted on Weibo, updated. Luke, not close. Stop clout chasing. That whitewashing attempt completely imploded. The film festival phone call Jessica's team had hyped so hard, convincing netizens it was true, turned out to be nothing more than a clout grab. Then a full security video surfaced, showing exactly how I'd saved Jessica. The truth, after years, was finally clear. Many in the industry who knew the facts reposted it to back me up. The same way she'd stepped on me to rise was now the way she fell, face first. Jessica called me, her voice hoarse, stripped of its old brightness. "Isabel, you're such a good person. Help me again." Say a few words for me, and I won't end up so miserable. I stayed silent and hung up. She had stayed silent back then, so I returned the favor. And for good measure, I released the recording of her with her patron. Another nail in the coffin. Once the defeat began, it snowballed. More dirt surfaced, not just the patron, but fake charity donations. Contracts were cancelled, damages paid. She was done in the industry. Before heading to the hospital for a follow-up, I received several large boxes. Curious, I opened them. They were all Luke's things, all related to me, like opening a time capsule of his life. Inside were many photos of us together, and of me alone. One had little charcoal written on the back. Turning it over, I saw it was from freshman year, when I traveled far to see him during his military training. I looked invincible then, eyes bright. There was a photo of me with Luke's grandfather, rare compared to the ones with Luke. After that came collections of my professional photos and CDs. Even after we broke up, Luke kept gathering my pictures, as if that way he could still take part in my life. His diaries were in there too, how a sullen, solitary boy tucked a girl into his heart. But there was so much he didn't understand. We were young then. There was one book, all blank, except for a single line. At 17, a sun-facing flower burst into my life. Like a long-delayed, drenching spring rain unceasing through the years, bringing everything to life. There was too much to take in at once. I went to the hospital for my follow-up. The results were as I'd feared, bad. The cancer was back, and it had spread. I was admitted again. At least now I had plenty to occupy my time. I hadn't heard from Luke in a while. I thought he was busy with his new film. I didn't expect him to hold a press conference announcing his retirement from the industry. Asked when he'd return, Luke Thinner now lifted his eyes and said, "My only leading lady is in the hospital. I'll come back when she's well." At his peak, the genius director Luke stepped back, sending public opinion into a frenzy. Piecing together what he'd said on the show and in interviews, along with insider leaks, people finally traced it back to me. The names Luke and Isabel were linked in discussion for a long time. In the time he vanished from public view, he had gone to bring in foreign specialists for me. He stayed by my bedside every day. Sometimes I'd wake in the night to see him watching me, eyes red with fatigue, like he was afraid I'd slip away if he looked away. Only then did it hit me. Grandpa had died after a long illness. Now Luke was reliving that grief. I told him, "Luke, you have to look forward." He buried his face in my frail palm. Warm drops, soaking my skin. His voice was rough. "I can't move forward. I'm trapped. There's no going on without you." Online, I found a fan-made video montage of my career, from my rookie days to my recent variety show appearance. My smile hadn't changed over the years. Everyone knew I was sick, so the edited lines from the show felt extra bittersweet. In the video, I said brazenly, "I've been reflecting on life. Give me a dying role now, and next time I'll go to LA with director Luke to get an award." And, having lost my sense of taste, director Luke's cooking is actually pretty good. The last shot was on the beach, the bonfire lighting my pale face as I said quietly, "I don't have a wish for myself. If I had to make one, I'd wish everyone happiness. Every day. Everyone happy. Every day." The video ended there. My longtime fans, new fans, even casual viewers cried maybe, because they knew I didn't have long. There wasn't a single hater left online. My moments of clarity grew fewer. One day, I suddenly craved oranges, like when I'd told Luke after graduation that I wanted grape soda. Luke stared at me, almost pleading. "Okay, I'll go get some. Don't fall asleep, wait for me." I nodded. I knew he could run fast, but I really didn't have much time left. Slowly, I took out my phone and dialed the number I'd never managed to get through to before. It rang once, then was picked up. Luke's voice came through, breathless, tinged with a strange mix of panic and unease. "Isabel, I'm almost back." Whatever he said after that, I couldn't hear anymore. I was so tired. I closed my eyes and saw 17-year-old Luke, Right there, at my left. Close enough to touch. Scowling. Isabel, Luke said. Stop looking at me. Go to sleep.